Chapter 4. Into the Woods. It was a wonderful wood. Sherwood Forest run wild. After 100 metres, Harry could no longer see the house. In 200, he was lost. Clutching a stick, he picked his way through the undergrowth. Thorns tugged at his jeans and seeds lodged everywhere. Birds flitted from stem to branch. Sunlight streamed through the canopy of leaves. Harry loved it. For Tangle, the wood was heaven. After a while, they reached a clearing. Harry clambered onto the trunk of a great tree blown down in the gales of winter. 8 feet from the ground, he sat astride, as if it were a giant horse, and he gazed across the sea of bracken. A thicket of yew trees, darker than the rest of the sunlight. Greenery reminded him of the ghost. Was it here, he wondered, here in the tangled wood, that old Goggly went round during the days of daylight, and at night did he go floating through the trees, shuffling across the lawns to terrorise the inhabitants of Lag Hall? Harry did not believe a word of it. Lying back on the trunk, he clasped his hands behind his head and gazed at the branches all around. The sun dazzled, and he closed his eyes. A googly would a wooing go, he began to sing in a harsh, unbroken voice. Hey ho, says Woggly, a googly would a wooing go. With his wiggle would let him or no, with a boggly woggly wiggly wicket. Hey ho, says Goggly Woggly. Harry sat up again. The bark he was sitting on was rough, patches were loose. He picked at a flake between his knees and pulled it back with grubby fingers. A colony of ants swarmed out. Harry jumped back. Then he saw he was already covered. Dozens of ants were crawling about his t-shirt and the blue denim of his jeans. Worse still, he saw that his faulty zip had come down, and they were scuttling through the gap towards his underpants. With a shout, he sprang to his feet, balancing on the trunk, and brushed the hard little insects from him with the frantic hands. He yanked at his belt, fumbled with the stud, and pushed the jeans to his ankles. The ants were on his bare legs. Careless how many he killed, he slapped them away. He tried to tug the jeans over his trainers, but they were too tight, and for a moment he staggered and nearly fell. Awkwardly he hopped onto the ant-free section of the trunk. Perhaps the beasts had got inside his underpants. He pulled the elastic and checked. He. Harry froze, tingling to the roots of his hair. Where had that noise come from? Hoo! He looked up. The sun was dazzling. He shaded his eyes. On the branch, high above his head, a tiny old lady was kicking her legs and laughing down at him. Have they all gone? She said chirpily. No ants in your pants. Harry blushed scarlet. Bending, he struggled with his jeans. Had it not been for a branch, he would have fallen. At length they were pulled up, and his belt was fastened. Roughly he rubbed his ankles and knees, lest any of the ants were still inside. Then, holding on to the branch, he looked up again. No need to be embarrassed, came the shrill, budgerigar voice. 7 nephews I've got. You're not the first boy I've seen in his underpants. She was an extraordinary figure in shiny red tights and a green tunic that might well have come from the real Sherwood Forest. But this was no Maid Marian or female Will Scarlet, for she had a bush of white hair and was 70 or 80 years old. Hang on a minute, I'm coming down. Nimble as a monkey, she swung up onto the branch, ran to the trunk of the tree and swarmed down, knees out like a frog. For a moment she vanished beneath the forest of bracken. The green heads tossed violently. Then, like an orange pip or a jack-in-the-box, she popped out again and stood on the fallen trunk beside Harry and Tangle. Hello, she said. Bird bright and alert as a squirrel. You must be Harry Barton. We heard you were coming. As if she had so much energy she could never stand still, the old lady did a handspring. I'm Dot, not Dotty. She cackled at her own joke. The human fly. An ant nipped Harry's leg and he slapped it sharply. Dotty, he thought, more like stark raving bonkers. Do you like climbing trees? Yes, said Harry. This wood's terrific for it, said the old lady. Here, come with me. It's much more fun above the ground. Fearlessly, she jumped down and led the way along a narrow ride. Of course, trees aren't the same as the Grand Canyon or the Empire State Building, said Dot. Not the same class at all. But if you want oaks and beeches, giant redwoods, a really good bit of mixed woodland, there's nothing better. She sprang up and caught a branch that trailed overhead. A heave, a swing, and she was sitting on it, dappled with sunlight, for all the world like a pixie in a book of fairy tales. She dropped back to the ground, and they continued through the summer-smelling bracken. Perhaps your auntie's told you about me. Harry shook his head. Oh, I used to be quite famous, said the little woman. Worked for the Grand State Circus in Paris. Queenie, they called me then. Lots of stunts we had. Have you heard of the Eiffel Spider? The Angel of Niagara? I don't think so, Harry said politely. No, oh dear. In all the papers I was. She was crestfallen. Queen Kwong, the mad nun of Notre Dame. I think I've heard of that, Harry lied outrageously. Yes, definitely. I've heard of the mad nun. Have you? The little gnome face lit up with pleasure. Where? It was in a magazine at school, Harry said. Quite an important page, actually, about how you dressed up as a mad nun and went climbing all about the top of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, like Quasimodo, and everybody came to see you. That's it, Dot said delightedly. People still remember. And as they came to a little clearing, she turned a dozen cartwheels in the grass, so fast that she was a blur of red and green. Watching her made Harry feel dizzy. See that patch of trees over there? Said Dot as she came to a halt. Harry gazed to where she pointed. That's where old Goggly hides out. She opened her eyes wide. Did they tell you about old Goggly? That terrible ghost? She knew that he knew, thought Harry. She'd been sitting right above him when he sang his silly song. A real monster, she said without waiting for a reply. His grave is somewhere in there. If you look now, you'll find nothing but stones, but there used to be a cottage. With her circus background, Dot told the story more dramatically than Natty Slack. Harry shivered, but he did not believe a word. Is he dangerous, old Goggly? He asked innocently. Not during the day, she said. He never comes out when the sun's up. But at night... What happens at night? He crawls out, she said, all bones covered with soil, and creeps and shivers through the trees until he comes to the house. Then he peeps through the windows and hides in the bushes, waiting for anyone foolish enough to go wandering around in the dark. Then he catches them with his bony hands. What happens then? Said Harry. Oh, terrible things. Yeah, what? Tell me. It's like the ghost says in Hamlet. I could a tale unfold whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make the two eyes like stars start from their spheres, they knotted and combined locks to part, and each particular hair to stand on end, like quills upon the fretful Pompatine. Her eyes stared, her hands opened and shut. Harry was impressed by her acting. I haven't got knotted and combined locks, he said. I've got a crew cut. My hair stands on end all the time. Dot laughed. Are you telling me, Harry said plainly, that I shouldn't go wandering about at night? That it might be dangerous? That's right. She laid a hand on him. There's something out there. You stay in your bed. Nothing will touch you high up in the tower. Harry longed to know what secret Natty and Dot were trying to keep from him. Close at hand, a giant tree rose from the woodland floor. This is the one we're going to climb, said the little old lady. Easy as pie. Good old English oak with lots of handholds and comfy level branches to sit on. Harry looked up. The tree towered above the others nearby. Come on, Dot said. Follow me. Soon Harry found himself in a different world. All about him were branches and air and blue sky and bunches of green leaves. Far below, no bigger than a mouse, Tangle looked up with his head on one side. It was a long way down, a long, long way. If he fell from that height... Harry began to feel nervous. Do you want to rope up? Around her waist, Dot carried a coil of thin white line. Oh, no, thank you. Harry reached for the next branch. The tops of the smaller trees were below them. Now, like a giant field of cabbages, the woods stretched away in all directions. Harry had never been so high. Look, he pointed, a nest. There's loads of nests, but this one's got eggs in it. Carefully, he climbed across and peered into the twiggy, moss-lined cup. There were 5 eggs. They were quite big, bluey green and mottled with dark spots. Harry picked one out. It was very cold. Rook, said Dot. Careful you don't break it. I did once. Whoa, what a pong. Soon they were in the topmost branches. Sitting comfortably and rocking in the wind, Harry gazed across the wood. Far off in the one direction, he could see a range of blue hills. Far off in the other was the glittering line of the sea. It's fabulous, he said. Fantastic. Shh. Dot seized his arm and pointed down. In the clearing far below them was a man. He wore a brown tweed suit. In one hand he carried a pair of powerful binoculars, and around his neck hung a camera with a telescopic lens. Harry recognised him at once. Beastly Priestley, whispered Dot. We saw him this morning, Harry whispered back, in a big yellow Rolls Royce. He nearly ran into us. What's he doing? Is he bird watching? Bird watching? That man couldn't tell an owl from an ostrich. No, he's not bird watching, Dot said. He's spying on us at Lag Hall. Oh, that's what he's doing, spying on us, the no-good, sneaky, miserable toad. Why? Reasons, said Dot. You better ask your Aunt Bridget that. She moved down a couple of branches to see more clearly. This time I've spotted him. Bending double, Colonel Priestley ran from a buried rowan to a clump of purple foxgloves and crouched low. I've got an idea, Dot beckoned. Come quickly, take care. Trying not to shake the leaves, they descended to the abandoned nest. Are you a good shot? Harry nodded. Yeah, quite. All right, 3 for you, 2 for me. Dot picked up one of the 4-month-old eggs, caught hold of a branch and prepared to throw. Wait till you have a clear shot. Aim for his bonce. Delighted by the idea of hurling rotten eggs at a grown-up, Harry reached into the nest. Colonel Priestley had moved from the foxgloves and was peering round a pile of mossy stones. Right, ready, steady, go! Dot threw back her arm and hurled the first egg. Harry watched it sail through the air in a perfect curve. Splat! It landed right by the Colonel's shoe. Startled, he looked around. Then Harry threw his first egg. It was a bad shot, and he made the branches shake. Colonel Priestley stared up and pulled out a pair of spectacles. Beyond the leaves he spotted 2 figures. Go on, Priestley! Dot leaned out and shook a tiny fist. Creeping round like an arsty old stoat. We know about you up there at Fillen Grange with your fox hunts and your summer balls. You don't fool us. She threw an egg again. It was a wonderful shot. The rook's egg flew from the branches, splosh, right on his shoulder. Harry shouted with delight. Colonel Priestley shouted too. I see you there, Dotty Skylike. Oh, what a stink! I'll get even with you. See if I don't. I'll teach you to meddle with Percy Priestley. And who's that with you? A boy? Who are you, boy? Let him have it, whispered Dot. Harry drew back his arm. Come on down, Sharpies. If you take my advice, you'll choose your... The egg whizzed down like a cricket ball. If Dot's shot had been wonderful, this was fantastic. Even from where they stood, they heard the loud pop as it exploded on Priestley's forehead. Dancing with rage, Colonel Priestley pulled out a big handkerchief and began mopping himself clean. I'll get you, whoever you are! I'll get you! He was livid. At this moment, Tangle, who had been hunted, appeared through the undergrowth. Realising at once that Colonel Priestley was not a nice man, he began to growl and show his teeth. Darting forward, he took a nip at the Colonel's ankle. That's it, go on, Tangle, they cried. Get him, bite him! Tear a chunk out of his trousers. Urged by their shouts, Tangle redoubled his efforts. Get off, let go! Colonel Priestley began to stumble away. Good boy, that's it, see him off, they cried. Harry flung his last egg. Dot pulled off acorns and bits of rotten branch. Missiles rained down upon Colonel's head. A shaggy fiend with 100 teeth was attacking him from behind, hanging on to the seat of his trousers, driving him like a sheep. He was completely routed. Stumbling and falling headlong, Colonel Priestley beat an undignified retreat. That's it, Priestley, sling your hook! Get off your land! The shrill parrot voice rang through the woods. Next time we'll give you something to really think about. High in their tree, Harry and Dot watched him go. Grabbing hold of branches, they performed the dance of victory. Oh, wonderful, glorious! Dot sighed with pleasure and laughed afresh. Wait until I tell the others. Harry Barton, you're a boy after my own heart. You're going to get on famously at Lag Hall. Soon Tangle reappeared, wagging his tail happily, and resumed hunting rabbits instead of kernels. Dot and Harry returned to their high branches. When you get down, you should go for a swim, Dot said. I'm going to, said Harry, and spread his arms in the breeze as if he was flying.